Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Ukraine is extending its drone defense expertise to the Middle East, sending interceptor drones and specialists to Jordan to help protect U.S. military bases against Iranian attacks. Now, Kiev has gained extensive experience countering Iranian-made Shahed drones, achieving an interception rate of around 90%. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump criticized Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy, saying he must negotiate peace with Russia and now holds, quote, even fewer cards, unquote. Now, Trump suggested that Russian President Vladimir Putin is ready for an agreement, highlighting the complex dynamics facing Kiev. Now, to explore U.S. Ukraine cooperation, regional security, and the political context of ongoing conflicts, we're now joined in the studio by Reuben F. Johnson, research fellow, Casimir Pulaski Foundation. Thanks for coming by this morning. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start with Putin and Trump. Apparently, they've had a phone call. Now, what we're hearing already, that maybe it's no surprise, it's a very good call, quote, positive, substantive, frank, constructive. So again, first takeaway, what did we get out of this call? Does this mean anything in substance, do you think?
Well, so far, none of the calls have meant anything in substance, and we keep hearing that Putin's ready to make a deal, and he always walks away or prevaricates or does something. And so I listened to Trump the other day talking about how, well, they were trying to negotiate with the mullahs in Iran, and all the Iranians were trying to do was just play for time. And I thought to myself, well, does he not see the parallels here between what Putin's been doing for the last, almost 2 years now? So I don't see what comes out of these things. I think Steve Witkoff is pushing some of this.
You said Witkoff is pushing some of this. At the same time, I mean, we know that the United States is now very much engaged what's happening in Iran. I mean, this is ongoing. The battle continues. So where are we, in your mind? Where's mediation in this between Ukraine, between Russia and the United States? Where do you see this going, if anywhere at all? From this phone call, it seems everything's quite well.
I can't see this going anywhere because the Russians keep demanding more territory, which the Ukrainians are not going to give up, because they know what happens to people who are in those areas that become occupied by the Russians. They know what happens to those people. And if the Russians were to ever be given the territory that they've not been able to take in 10 years by force, if they were just simply handed over to them, we'd see one of the worst migration crises we've ever seen in modern times in Europe. It's just a non-starter from so many different angles.
And also in terms of, if we're looking at what's happening, you said territory, let's talk about that for a minute, because we have one of the top commanders here, actually the chief commander of Ukraine, Sascha, saying that Ukrainian forces have gained more territory in the past month than Russia captured during the same period. So, I mean, we're hearing one side. So what do we make of that, and how does that impact any sort of leverage that Kiev has?
I'll just repeat what people said this year at the Munich Security Conference, which was that they saw that Ukraine was now more confident, more powerful, more in a better position than they'd ever seen. And you start looking at all the indicators, and everything slowly, I mean, it's too early to celebrate, but everything is sort of slowly leaning in Ukraine's direction now. And the Russians simply no longer have the personnel in the field to be able to really take any territory. And don't forget that many times when they say, oh, we've taken this village, well, what does it mean? It means somebody flew a drone into that village with a Russian flag attached, and 4 soldiers walked in. Well, no, I'm sorry, that's not occupying a piece of territory.
So in terms of then what more at this point? I mean, in terms of Europe is already sending a lot of military aid, and by some estimates even more than the United States to Ukraine. If it is true that they're making these kind of gains on the ground, albeit very slowly, what in your mind is, what's missing here? What could help Ukraine a little bit more now to make that difference?
They need some sort of decisive, game-changing weapon on the battlefield. Something, and we might see that coming slowly, in that we've seen tactical fighter aircraft that were supplied to Ukraine by allies have been used for air defense. They're now talking about using them for ground attack, to attack Russian forces on the ground. That could make a difference. But ultimately, the Russians are no longer mobilizing enough people to replace their losses, and the losses are they're catastrophic. I mean, a year ago, they were losing 14,000 soldiers per month, the Russians. Now it's over 35,000, so it's 2.5 times, and the numbers keep rising. But they're not able to mobilize people.
I'm curious about the weapon you mentioned. I mean, you're saying this is about fighter jets. I mean, what about, we talked some months back of long-range missiles, for instance. We're looking at what the Storm Shadow was supplied by the UK, others as well. The Germans still didn't bring out their Taurus. I mean, is it something like that will make the difference? Is it more fighters specifically, and which ones? What is that key, let's say special thing that might make the difference here?
Well, the one weapon which has been really successful for the Ukrainians, unfortunately, there's not enough of them, and there's not enough. It's launched by the Mirage 2000 fighter aircraft, which is made by Dassault in France, and that's the Hammer bomb, which is made by Safran, and that's been really successful. But using that to attack targets on the ground, close air support, being able to attack Russian positions from the air, could be really important. If that activity could expand, that could be a real game changer.
I mean, there's also different layers. I mean, we're talking about attack on the one end, trying to take back territory in Ukraine, but Ukraine has also suffered immensely from strikes by the Russians, the drone attacks, the missile attacks. If we're looking at Patriot batteries, that's really also what Ukraine needs. How critical in your mind is the supply there, especially now we're hearing that, well, experts will go to the Middle East from Ukraine, but in terms of the Patriot batteries and what's going on in the Middle East, let's say, how do you assess the situation? How prepared or not prepared is Ukraine with all this?
Well, it's the problem with the Patriot battery is it's very simple. Of the 3 different missiles fired by the Patriot batteries, the Patriot system, the MSE is the top of the capability, range, altitude, so on. We have been producing, this is incredible, 500 of those per year. It's only been in the last couple of months, after years and years of people saying we need to surge production, it's only been in the last couple of months there's been a commitment to triple that number by the year 2030, to take it up to over 1,000. In 2025, they built 600. That's just not enough. I mean, there's been more than that number fired already in the wars if you go back to last June, the war between Israel and Iran that lasted 12 days, and now in the current combat that's going on between Iran and all of its neighbors. We just don't make enough equipment. And the surging of American defense industrial capability has been at a snail's pace.
Yeah. You said earlier drones. I want to come back to that point also with Ukrainians rather in the Middle East. So we now have information Ukraine is sending interceptor drones and specialists to Jordan, apparently by the request of the United States. How significant is that, and how much does that, let's say, stretch the Ukrainians? Can they do both?
It's not going to stretch the Ukrainians because their production runs, I heard, I was just looking at this morning, their production runs for these interceptor drones that they have are around 50,000 units. So they're talking about keeping 40,000 for themselves and then selling 10,000 to the Jordanians or whoever else. So it's and it's not a production problem. The long pole in the tent with that system is you've got to train the operators on how to use them, and that takes a while.
Speaking of training as well, but with Ukraine also now, I mean, this came at the behest of the United States to a large extent, did it not, this request of interceptor drones? I mean, it's also a cost issue, isn't it? I mean, give us a parallel of how much an interceptor drone costs and what that means compared to maybe shooting down Shahed drones with missiles. I mean, there's a bit of a cost difference, isn't there?
Well, it's been crazy because these Shahed drones cost between $20,000 and $30,000 a piece. They're made with a lot of off-the-shelf commercial-grade electronics. There's not a lot of very sophisticated hardware, really nothing on board. And yet we've been shooting them down with missiles which cost $1 million or several $100,000. So I don't have a cost figure on the new Ukrainian interceptor drones, but they're supposed to be incredibly cheap.
Yeah, I think it's around roughly $2,000.
$2,000. Okay, yeah, that sounds about right. So that's a tenth of the cost of one of these Shahed drones. And the other thing the Ukrainians are doing is that they are starting to hit more of the facilities where the Shaheds are built, so that as they say, we're no longer shooting down arrows, we're killing the archers before they can shoot them.
Yeah, and this is an interesting one, because if this, let's say it's in Jordan, but obviously this will defend also in some cases U.S. assets, and if these, let's say, interceptors are there, they're going to make a difference. How do you think Trump will perceive that? I mean, he's been very much seesawing with his moods, very much criticizing Zelenskyy, even just recently, right, saying he has even fewer cards. But Zelenskyy involved with operations maybe to protect American assets. Do you think that will in any way shift Trump's view of him? Will that lead to something more in peace talks? What do you reckon?
I perceive, and other people perceive, that Trump's problem with Zelenskyy is one of personal animus. It goes back to the whole phone call, the famous phone call that led to the impeachment, and then there was that famous blow up in the Oval Office. It's personal for Trump, and he knows how to carry a grudge just about as long as anybody possibly can.
But what about his transactional nature? I mean, if he has, let's say, enough on, let's say, the cards as he likes to use it, do you think that'll change his mind?
If we were to see something really spectacular in terms of the Ukrainians helping defend American forces in Jordan. I mean, one of the reasons that it's Jordan is because out of all the different nations in the region, Jordan has probably the poorest economic condition, and they simply can't afford the very expensive air defense systems that the other neighboring countries can. So it's not a surprise to me that they were the ones that's where the Ukrainian drones went, or the interceptor drones went first. Because it's the greatest need there. All right.
Also, I want to jump a little bit into energy policy. I mean, this is also something that is making big headlines, a big impact. I mean, on Monday we had oil well over $100 a barrel, maybe even, I think, almost up to 120. That's come down. But given also how much effort went into, let's say, curtailing Russia, especially the income from oil and gas, and now the exemption back, that countries like India can buy Russian oil again. So what do you make of that? I mean, is this two-step back? Is this going to be long-term? What do you make of it?
This is one of the life's greatest frustrations for people that are watching this, because everything taken together in totality, it's not only that there's this fluctuation in the change of who can buy what, but it's also where not only the U.S. but all the allies, they're very, very, very slow in taking action against the shadow fleet, as we call it, these illegal oil tankers. And now there's a growing parallel universe of shadow fleet liquid natural gas tankers that the Russians have out there.
But this is now the actually allowed once again, right? So he's actually lifted that exemption and the barrier, so now Indians can buy Russian oil. It's not even illegal anymore.
They now can buy Russian oil. And of course the Indian lament has been that they were being penalized for buying Russian oil, but the Chinese are not. So that the Chinese are not penalized for buying any Russian energy.
So why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Because Trump is trying to maintain this very sort of tenuous relationship with the Chinese. They've put tariffs on China. The Chinese have come back and they've said, all right, then we're going to forbid the sale of certain very rare earth minerals to the U.S. And this is a build-up to this meeting, which is coming at the end of the month when Trump goes to China and he meets with Xi Jinping. And then, of course, we've just had, in this past week, we've had the famous Lang Hui in Beijing, the two sessions, as they call it, the once a year National People's Congress and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Committee, these two main bodies. And this is where a lot of policies get announced, where the direction of the country for the future is laid out.
Yeah, so that's something we're going to cover also later. It's going to be an intense week indeed. Look, thanks so much for coming in. Reuben F. Johnson, always a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you for having me, sir.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks. We'll stay right here on TVP World for more news and commentary. Goodbye.